Alright, well, I think we'll do one last little recording session, and then I'll call it for a night. Because it is a little past midnight. I've had a halfway decent sleeping schedule. I don't want to mess it up too badly. Okay, Vyatka has split. Berzniki. Actually, they haven't. They just got lost outright. So we're talking with a Grandmaster. We'll see what happens there. 2 roads. National focus. To the people. One must not forget why we're doing all this, not for some narcissistic desire to have our nation achieve some arbitrary definition of greatness, not for the sole wish to have a collapse and traitors suffer. We are doing this for the people of England. They do not deserve what was inflicted upon them by the Germans and their quizzing lackeys. They deserve to have a say in how things are done, and they deserve to have a decent and happy life. We will remember this and make it clear where our priorities lie. I'm thinking after this, we'll do the top of these, and then I'm thinking we do the trials. Did you start recording this time? I did. Thanks for making sure. I've had 2 heart attacks. In fact, I'll open it up just my my record. Okay. An English person's duty. The time has come. The candidates have been chosen for every party in every seat around the country. The parties have chosen their next prime ministers. They hope will occupy 10 Downing Street. And now comes the short yet chaotic tradition of English Parliament, rare yet so consequential for the future of this nation. It's time for the elections. The National Democratic League and the Socialist Labour Party are the 2 major political organizations of the election. The NDL, headed up by George Jellicoe and backed up by Claude Auchinleck, stand for the restoration of traditional pre-war England, but with the necessary reforms to keep it relevant in the modern age and to make it respected once more. The SLP, headed up by Harold Wilson, endorsed by Bill Alexander, is taking a more radical approach. England will finally cast off the chains that held the workers down and will move towards a more equitable future, free of poverty and with the rest of the worldwide proletariat. There is also David Stirling's organization, but many observers regard it as an extremist minor party. The choice will come down to Jericho's promise of a past glory restored or Wilson's promise of a future glory to be claimed. For Queen and Country, the NDL. Let's do it. So we have 100 days till the election. Campaign in Cornwall. To the people. The blank is leading. Socialist Labour Party. Alright. To the army. That works for me. Our military accomplished what it set out to do. It defeated the collaborators and set in a new system of government that will help the people of England. But in its new role, it is not as adept as it should be. It must be decided, and we will begin to make the necessary decision to shape the military in the way we want. There we go. Where do we want to campaign after this? London's going to be the big one. Oh, Lozano has been elected president of Mexico. Friendly with Japan, apparently. Campaign in London. Oop. Okay. So it looks like we got a new little focus. So high command loyalty is somewhat disloyal. Efficiency, we're somewhat efficient. So I think we just... Okay, that just does a bunch of stuff. Okay. I say next we start the Oxford trials. The matter of what to do with the officials and military members of the collaborationist regime has been a hotly debated subject. The left resistance, HMM, proper, and Sterling's factions all having disagreements on the fates of the accused, and indeed on many groups of people as a whole. A solution, as agreed to Alexander Sterling and Auchinleck Sterling and Alexander, is to hold a series of public trials for the most notorious collaborators, so that our people in the world will know that this government is not the same as that which it replaced. That it values justice and not mere revenge out of hand. There may be guilty to a one, but the traitors will receive a fair trial for their sins. Yeah. Oh, there goes Kennedy. Rest in peace, buddy. You hate to see it. You really do. Okay. Our campaigning in London. It's about to finish up. I don't know if that did much for us, though. I say we go for... Okay, what are our big cities? Newcastle's one of them. Manchester might be good to try and work on. Manchester. Got East Anglia. Let me click on the state. Lancashire. Let's get campaign in there. Get some sort of advantage going. And we got research. We're almost ready to start going down that side of things again. Not quite, though. Alright. The newly established government of England has determined that the upcoming trials against the collaborators will take place in the city of Oxford. In keeping with England's democratic and liberal traditions, fairness will triumph over fury. And every single trial will be conducted to its fullest extent and with the utmost fairness. The crimes and sentences of any accused person will be treated with deadly seriousness, but we'll have to take public perception into account. If we act too merciful, the public will call us weak. Act too harshly, and they will smear us as tyrants. If we follow the rules of law, we will be rightfully accepted as liberators. Now we must select the judges. We'll do bread and what real quick. At long last, the hunger plaguing the nation is beginning to subside. Our efforts have been successful, and we soon won't have a problem like that anymore. So what do we do? What do we put our efforts into with all this leftover cash? Welfare is a good option, since many still have other issues aside from hunger. A strong democratic system would require some extra cash as well, or we could just spend it on the army and ensure another humiliation like this will not happen again. All good options. All good options. Pay off the debt a little bit. Campaign in Lancashire. Much debate has raged through the resistance forces regarding the fairness of the upcoming Oxford trials. Some have argued that completely neutral, apolitical men should be selected, though those voices are few and far between. Various factions within the resistance are pushing their own suggestions and accusing each other of being puppets. Swift compromise has been reached. 2 judges from Sterling's camp, 2 judges from the left resistance, and 2 judges from Her Majesty's Most Loyal Resistance proper have been selected to share the responsibilities of judging the collaborators. Much rests on the shoulders of these men. Let's hope they put the country above all else. Let the trials commence. Okay, so Wiltshire. They're pretty left-leaning right now. I think we would go for... maybe Lancashire again. No, I think we'll do London again. Noticing we're getting more days to campaign. Yeah, we're getting more campaigns in than these guys. It seems to be adding the same amount of points, if I'm understanding this right. Bread and what? Alright, here's the question. Who do we go after first? The head of a snake, the traitor, or the reformist? I'll let chat decide right now. Real quick, I'll do rebuilding the system. England's economy does not work. In fact, it hasn't worked for many years. Many of it is merely a result of massive destruction and carnage for 2 massive wars on the island. But there are a few things that just don't work. We'll be prepared to replace all of it. Taxes, regulations, jobs, industries, everything will be rebuilt. And if we know that it won't work, we'll reform it and put in something that will. England will be prosperous again, and we're going to do anything to make that happen. So the NDL campaigning in London. Starting to work out for us. Thinking the West Midlands next. So who are we thinking? The head of a snake, the traitor, or the reformist? We'll see what happens in Russia. Any opinion from you guys? It's kind of quiet. We'll go with we'll go over the reformist. Harold Macmillan, the Chancellor and Under-Treasurer of His Majesty's Exchequer, and the head of the reformist wing of the royal party, well known for his stance towards softening the collaborationist government and allowing a larger degree of freedom, his convictions apparently were not enough to overcome the fear of German intervention, and now he awaits punishment for being a wartime member in the Douglas Holmes cabinet. Macmillan's not the other prominent defenders of a cabinet, however. Unlike Home, he was never been in a position where he was responsible for the horrible crimes of government. And unlike Chesterton, he's not a terrible and shameless individual who truly believed in the objective right of what he was doing. Perhaps that will allow him to avoid their fates. Perhaps not. We'll see. Alright, campaigning in the Midlands. We're about to take over there, actually, so I'll do that real quick. Oh, Viatka versus the Order of St. George. We'll see how that goes. I don't know who I want to root for right now. East Midlands, we're going to try to get some gains there. Then from there, probably Lancashire. That's what I'm thinking at least. There we go. Alright. Macmillan was always going to be a controversial case. For many years, he had headed the reform faction in the royal party, and had at least somewhat pushed for partial reform, but when the war came, he ended up in the cabinet of Douglas Home, and anyone in the cabinet ended up at Oxford, even if they were primarily dealing with His Majesty's Treasury. Things took a strange turn as the opening of the trial. Macmillan stood up and read a prepared statement. In it, he told the jury that he had joined the collaborators out of a desire to stop the suffering of the English citizens back in the war, and that he attempted to subvert the will of the Germans at every turn he could. His goal had been to see a return to English democracy. However, he had decided to remain in the royal party during the war out of a fear the rebellion would be unsuccessful, because of a fear that the garrison at Cornwall would put an end to organized resistance along with Germany. It was only after the war had ended with a free government restored, the garrison crushed, and Germany still in chaos, did he realize the enormity of his mistakes. He accepted responsibility for his actions and apologized. This threw the trial into a tailspin. The defense argued that Macmillan was sincere about his regret for an enormous mistake done with the best of intentions. The prosecution argued that it was not enough and merely a last-ditch effort to save his life. The jury was divided as well. The NDL-oriented ones argued that he should be exiled, while the Sterlingists wanted him dead for his actions. The leftists were more merciful, however. They wanted him to see him experience New England take shape for sanity, removed of any politics, of course. I don't want to help SLP right now, but morally I gotta go with it. That's just the moral call I gotta go with. The head of a snake. Alec Douglas Home, the longest-serving PM in the history of collaboration is England, but while his electoral strength still remains undefeated, his tenure was ended by the free peoples he had tried to submit. Now we shall bring him before the court to defend himself. He is accused of every injustice, every violation, every misery suffered by the English people during the war. Every order, every action, every inaction can be traced to him and him alone. We intend to make him answer for every one of those crimes and prosecute the leader of the collaborationists under the fullest extent for the crimes committed under his command. Guess we're not campaigning in Somerset or Cornwall. Whatever. Alright, campaign in West Anglia. We're right there. We're getting pretty damn close to it. Swapping it. Alec Douglas Home was escorted into the courtroom, already certain on how he would be judged. He had no hope that the judges would grant him mercy. He was the Prime Minister, and to the rebels, he had betrayed his country, betrayed his people. Home was forcefully motioned to his seat alongside his defense team, who could not hide their contempt for him. Those were friendliest faces in the rooms, and then the judge began the proceeding. Alec Douglas Home, you stand here in front of all of England, accused of heinous crimes. You stand accused of high treason against England and her people. How do you plead? Not guilty? His lawyer responded unconvincingly. Holmes' defense team gave an uninspired, stunted speech that claimed he was too scared to fulfill his duty as an Englishman to resist for Germans and feared for his life. Once they were finished, the prosecution immediately tore into Home, insulting his character, calling him a coward, and of course, a damned bloody traitor. John Baker, thank you for the follow, man. I appreciate it. The jury took no time to deliver their deliberation. Holmes' first thoughts after the verdict were of rage. The fools. Once Germany gets back on their feet, they would be back to crush England once and for all. There would be no more England after they were done. But he calmed down. There was no use in spending his last days angry at the people. He understood. He only wished they weren't so hasty. Holmes was not fazed as they sentenced him to death, and did not struggle as he was pulled back to his cell to await his fate. Holmes sat in his cell awaiting his fate. He had already come to terms with his impending execution not long after his sentencing. There was no use fighting it now. As his death crept closer and closer to him, Lord Holmes' mind drifted into another life. He thought of a life where he helped the resistance. He saw himself smuggling documents out of Westminster, subtly resisting the Germans from inside Parliament. But wasn't that what he was already doing? It was an open secret that many in Parliament had no love for the Germans, yet they were collaborators, but it was necessary to work from within to keep the boot from coming down too hard on all of England. Holmes' rationalizing was interrupted by two guards who ushered him to his feet. It's time. Holmes was led into the sunlight and saw a courtyard. He recognized the Tower of London, which loomed over him. He was escorted to the opposite side of the Tower Green and made to kneel against the wall. He saw a small gathering was assembled to watch. He couldn't make anyone out, but he was sure Auchinleck was watching. The firing squad marched in, halted, and executed a crisp right face. They stood at attention, awaiting further command. Ready? This sharp command punctured the morning air. The soldiers raised their rifles. Holmes' mind filled with activity. He continued to try to rationalize his decisions, if only to himself. Aim! The soldiers trained their rifles on him. Holmes saw a little fear in their eyes, just resolve. Finally, regret swarmed through Holmes' mind. If only he could take it all. Fire! Holmes' last thoughts of regret were interrupted by 4 shots that rang through the courtyard. The head of a snake has been cut. Let's do the Liberal next. Reginald Malding. By the accounts of those who knew him, he should not have joined the collaborations at all. One of the more prominent voices against government, while in Parliament, many of similar beliefs, joined His Majesty's most loyal resistance when the war broke out, yet he betrayed them and stayed with the collabs. Now he's brought before us to defend his decision. This is easily the most controversial of the defendants we tried, however. Aside from the aforementioned break with his colleagues and friends, he hasn't done anything particularly interesting after that. Some still want to punish him, others argue what he did does nothing to warrant him being brought before a court of murderers and traitors at all. Let's hear the evidence before we make a final decision. I'll probably work on Lancashire after this. Actually, London might be a good one to focus on. I'll do Lancashire real quick just so I can work on flipping it. And then we'll work on London. Reginald Malding was hauled before the court next. He was mostly known as an MP who was pretty friendly with the reformist cause. Many people thought he would be a sure defector to the resistance and were dismayed that he did not. Now he was hauled in front of Oxford to answer for his betrayal. He entered a plea of not guilty. That was the only normal thing about his trial. It turns out there was scant evidence that he did anything really wrong. It turns out there, or what was already committed by thousands of other collaborators who were walking the streets free at the moment. The prosecution argued he was responsible for at least some of the decisions made by the government, while his defense painted the trial as a political vendetta against a man with a decent history of anti-authoritarian actions. This led to a hung jury again. Claude supporters thought he shouldn't be given anything more than a slap on the wrist. Bill supporters still wanted him banned from the political scene. David supporters were initially wanting him dead too, but eventually lowered their proposal to exile once the rest of the jury deemed it ludicrous. Yeah, slap him with whatever. He'll be pardoned anyway. I guess we're going with probably the traitor next. Bernard Montgomery. If he had died in the invasion, he would be forever remembered as a hero. If he had refused service with collaborators, he might still be. If he had joined with the resistance, he would have had a chance of redemption, and yet here he is. The case is clear-cut. He was in charge of a collaborationist army, and everything the army did could be blamed on him. However, he still had conducted actions in the past that were admirable. There remained a non-insignificant amount of respect for him amongst Gludd and his supporters. Might it be worth it to temper justice with mercy? Probably flip Lancashire close enough, and work on the East Midlands. All of them? Asked one of the officers on the prosecution team. Yes, all of them, affirmed the lead prosecutor. Most of these people on the list are MPs but haven't been involved in anything too terrible. Sure, they may have voted on a few suspicious things, but that's not entirely criminal or worthy of punishment. That doesn't mean we can kill them all. Sure we can, said one of the stern-aligned officers. Another officer was taken aback by the statement. No, we can't! If we do this, we'll be in a massive orgy of violence. Besides, those people aren't going to have a future in politics after this. Who wants an old holdover from the Royal Party days? You are correct, said the main prosecutor. We need the transition as painless as possible, and that means we can't slaughter anyone who disagrees with us. These people have terrible views and beliefs, but that doesn't mean we should kill them or make them suffer untoward punishment. Now let's go over the names on the list one last time and make the final decision. Yes, sir, said an attorney as he began to read. First up is, Thatcher, Margaret. Any objections to keep her off the list? There weren't. Alright, so that's the last we hear of it. Next we've got... Oh no. Margaret Thatcher isn't dead! Ding dong, the wicked bitch still lives! It's a shame she didn't die 87 years ago! It's a shame that His Majesty's most loyal resistance didn't kill the bitch. The Kasela family didn't know what to expect when they smuggled from the coast of Lithuania in an iron barge going to Sweden. They didn't know what to expect when they landed there. Long ago, they decided Sweden wasn't safe because of its friendly ties with Germany. So they crossed the country to get onto another ship. One which took them to another country, one that for sure wouldn't betray them to Germany, and thus they knew the war was over when the smugglers dropped them off in Norwich. Let me check real quick. I can't campaign, so I'll do that in the Midlands. Eventually the Kolezas ended up with many other Lithuanian immigrants in the neighborhood of Becktown. Their life was tough. Crime was rampant, poverty widespread, and oftentimes it felt like they were not wanted by the public. Little Joachimas was harassed by his peers at school for his limited understanding of English. Edvards had trouble finding steady work for the longest time, and the neighborhood had quite a fright when some youth painted a swastika on the side of a Koleza's apartment building. Sometimes they even considered moving to somewhere else, Scotland, New York, or even Vancouver, but in the end we stuck it out. Now things are looking up, and Edvards found a job as a chef for a local restaurant, cooking up Cipollini for hungry Londoners. The kids are doing well in school, and it seems that the Koleza family has finally put the violence and starvation of their homelands behind them forever, basking in the peace and prosperity of free England. If there's a land for free men anywhere, this is it. Okay, we can purge incompetent officers. Let's do military loyalty. It looks like the West Russian front's gonna win this. So I guess I can think of worse ones, the Aryans winning. The field marshal strode into the court with his chest puffed out and his head held high, nodding respectfully towards the judges and taking his seat beside the defense team. Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, you stand here in front of all of England, accused of high treason against England and her people. How do you plead? Not guilty, his barrister announced. The defense team painted a stark picture before the jury, a picture of a brave and noble military man who fought in both world wars to defend his country. A picture of a soldier who sacrificed his pride and dignity to join the collaborators in hopes of preventing the German grip from squeezing the life out of England. A picture of an Englishman who tried to save his country. Montgomery had insisted his team that he himself be called to witness, and gave a short but powerful speech regarding his duty as an officer to protect the English people in the face of tyranny and evil, even if it meant sacrificing values you hold dear. The prosecution fought back against such claims, arguing that sacrificing the values of liberty and democracy, Montgomery had failed to protect the English people. The jury naturally is split. Those following Claude and the NDL wish for the veteran to be sent into exile, while the supporters of the SLP want to see him properly punished with a sentence of forced labor. Those sympathetic to Sterling, however, have argued for his death. Let him go into exile. campaigning in the East Midlands. I think we're about to take up a lead here. Yeah, we're working on it. How long do we have? We have about 40 days to election. Let's start working on London. That's the big one. Oh, right. We need a focus. Let's go with the rabid dogs. Templar, Carver, Gibbs, Baker. Their names are numerous, but there's one thing that unites them all. They were commissioned generals in the Collaborationist army. Now we have to judge them for the atrocious crimes under their command. They have no future in our army, that much is clear, but how far do we want to punish them? Some are arguing that only blood can answer for blood, but others are arguing that a violent retaliation against these men is not who we are, and more proportionate punishments should be considered. Purging competent officers. Promote competent officers. I'll do that. Sussex. Musin sing no more. And notice what you want. Poetic justice. The military officers piled into the room, their stiff posture and confident strides denotating their years of experience. The pack was led by Field Marshal Gerald Templar, who had arranged to deliver his own speech later in the proceedings. Each and every defendant was accused of high treason, and each and every member pleaded not guilty. The defense emphasized the men's service records, appealing to their status as honorable war veterans. Templar echoed such sentiments himself, drawing strict contrast between his generals and the likes of Chesterton. While the fascists were serving their own twisted ambitions, he claimed, the generals were serving their families, their wives and children and grandchildren. Those who would have been slaughtered had any of them joined with the resistance. The prosecutors directed the conversation away from the men's service record and towards their actions during the many years of collaboration, citing Claude Auchinleck as an example they should have aspired to instead of fighting them. Once more the jury is divided. Supporters of the SLP and Sterling alike want to kill them, of course. Followers of Claude and the NDL argue honorable discharge. Now send them out of the military. We're out of PP, which isn't the best, but what are you going to do? Let's see. The bootlicker. Arthur Chesterton. If there was a man more reviled in all of England, hated by both rebels and collaborators alike, we have yet to find him. A fascist demagogue so low he could walk under Daction's belly, the head of a collaborationist secret police, and the head of a black-shirt paramilitary group during the war. Certainly has an enormous amount to answer for, though we will try to be fair to him, as fair as one can be when looking at an individual as heinous as Chesterton is. Let's do Lancashire. Try to cement our lead there as best we can. I think we're on a decent track to win. Hopefully it's not going to be like Viatka's election where they're just horribly bugged. Oop, Borman is won. Viatka is winning. They're both campaigning in Oxfordshire, so that'll we'll see how that works for them. If we can flip London, that would be pretty big, and I think we'd have it, right? Okay. Progress. A.K. Chesterton shuffled into the room escorted by 2 guards. His eyes darting from judge to judge, a low murmur erupted through the room as the court glared at the old man in disgust and fury. He sat beside the defense team, who were barely making eye contact. A.K. Chesterton, you stand here in front of all of England, accused of the most heinous crimes. You stand accused of high treason against England and her people. How do you plead? Not guilty, came the muted response from his barrister. The defense unenthusiastically referred to his service as a veteran in both world wars, fighting bravely against the Germans in Africa during both bloody conflicts. By engaging in collaboration, he sought to protect England from the Germans and improve the broken political system that had been left behind by the failures of the pre-war government. The prosecution naturally had a field day. They accused Chesterton of being a proud, self-proclaimed English fascist and a former confidant of Oswald Mosley, a vile man who exploited the surrender of England to push his own hateful ideology. They portrayed him as a willing bootlicker who fervently supported Germany's actions and willingly became the figurehead of the rabidly anti-Semitic faction of the Royalist Party. The jury was confident of his guilt but struggled to decide a sentence. NDL members and moderates wished to sentence him to exile, while hardline SNP and Sterling supporters alike demanded death by hanging. Throw him off the aisles. And that's... My timer went off, but I kind of want to finish this up real quick. The gavel strikes. It is done. The Oxford trials have concluded. Now we merely await the sentences. Throughout these trials, we have seen the very worst of the collaborationist government and its dogs have to offer. We've heard tell of countless crimes and even more horrific going-ons in the dark underbelly of the collaborationist regime. But these sentences shall apportion guilt only to those deserving. Our actions beforehand could very well have affected the outcome significantly. We can only hope that the international community sees these trials as just or at least fair. If not, we may have made a miscalculation. There we go. Bormann's won the Civil War. Campaign in London. That's what I need. And then the East Midlands, we should probably bolster our support there after that. Now we have a big lack of PP right now, but we're doing okay. But we are so close to taking over London. Just gotta keep campaigning. We'll overtake the socialists. Where to send the rest? The army has thousands of extra soldiers, regulars, local militias, and reservist groups. Some say this is too much. They say they could be doing much more useful work in other places. Things like rebuilding our nation, repairing factories, repaving roads, that sort of thing. This is an interesting proposal, and we have to consider the possibility that our forces could be more effectively utilized in other ways. Gloucestershire. I doubt that would matter too much. London, Reuters. In the first visit of an independent Scottish leader to England since the 16th century, President Robert McIntyre arrived at Victoria Station yesterday. McIntyre and his wife, Letitia, were treated to a welcoming ceremony by the Household Cavalry Mounted Regiment and the Coldstream Guards. Some small protests by people who believed McIntyre's Scottish National Party betrayed the UK in the Second World War were held, but the crowd was largely positive towards the visitors. After an informal lunch at Buckingham Palace, McIntyre then held the meeting with the Prime Minister, other cabinet members, and the Leader of the Opposition. During these meetings, several trade agreements between Scotland and England were finalized, including one where Scotland agreed to purchase several aircraft for their flag airline. Speech at Parliament today, McIntyre spoke at length about the shared historical and cultural links between England and Scotland, especially with recent support of the resistance during the Civil War by the Scottish government. Members of Parliament who hoped for a challenge in the SNP's stance against unionism were disappointed, although President McIntyre did state that Scotland would gradually work with England as an equal partner in economic and defence issues. The visit to Westminster was capped off with President McIntyre laying a wreath to the unknown warrior in Westminster Abbey. A state dinner was held for the Scottish President in Westminster Abbey that evening, with 150 guests in attendance. In remarks before the dinner, McIntyre thanked the people of England for their hospitality and offered to host the Prime Minister in a state visit to Edinburgh in the near future. We have to be friendly to him. I mean, he did give us those guns. Okay, I think with this we'll be right over the edge in London, then work on the Midlands, make sure we really bolster that support. Okay. There we got it. We've taken London. Let's work on the Midlands. Now they're working on Gloucestershire. Alright, I finally decided to try it. The scars are still present on the English landscape and the English soul, but thanks to the Reconstruction Command, they are scars rather than open wounds. The process of healing won't be able to fully get on its feet until the people have elected a new government, but no one would be lying if they said the command did a damn good job with what they had. From the ashes of opposition and war, a new England rises. An England without the shackles of totalitarianism, without the vultures of fascism picking at its bones. From here and forever it is a free England, which shall be governed by this land, governed by the people, of the people, and for the people, not for the tyrant in Germania, and a curse upon his house. Let him know that the fires of freedom rises. Still starting to finish up soon. We just took the Midlands, that's right. We got some more troops. We'll put them in Scotland. Then after that, I think we'll do another campaign in London. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5. 5 versus 8. Got some pretty densely populated places. I'll work on London real quick. Probably on the East Midlands again later. Though we only have a few days till the election, so we'll have one more go at it. And then that's really it. Citizenship reborn. Alright. One man, one vote. Though now that women can vote as well, that saying might need to be updated somewhat. One person, one vote doesn't quite run off the tongue as well. Either way, the New Democratic League and the Socialist Labour Party now prepare to face off in the first democratic election held on English soil in 2 decades. At stake is the future of the monarchy, the economy, and the reconstruction process, as well as the assorted reforms each party says they will or won't enact. But it shan't be some shady council of military men who decide how this happens. It shall be by the people, and the people alone. This is what we fought for, a free and independent England. Let's enjoy it whilst we can. The SLP is working in Cornwall. That's not going to matter. Yeah, we're throwing away their campaigning time right now. of anti-tank equipment. We'll start swapping the old stuff for the new. Cobra missiles. There we are. 4 days left. Might as well work on the Midlands, though I think we got it. This will be a good place to end it with the elections. Citizenship reborn. There we are. Research slot available. Basic motorized equipment. Let's get working on that. I think we're okay to just go a little ahead of time and work on that. Yeah. We're at DEFCON 3. And now we just gotta wait. Oh. Months of advertisements, speeches, and rallies, debates, arguments, and insults, shouting and heated discussion, and now it all comes down to this: the choice of English people. Both parties could have been battling hard to ensure their victory at the polls. Could they have done more? Could some missteps have been avoided? Could this campaign have been conducted more positively? Perhaps. But both campaigns have done what they could to ensure victory in the coming elections. Nothing less than the very future of this country is at stake. After their ballots are cast, the people of England scurry home to turn on their televisions and radios to see who the winner is. Many have predictions, many have biases and hopes. Others have polls and samples behind their thinking. But there is only one way to know for sure what happened, and that is to count the votes. The National Democratic League wins the election. Let's go. Let's see what happens, whether they hop into power or not. There we go. The first election in England after the war, and the first truly free one since 1935, would obviously be a momentous one. After years of hardship and deprivation, the people of England would have her say, and the world waited with bated breath, fearing the worst from a people vengeful and angry from recent past. Would Sterling, the reactionary leader of the SAS, be the first English PM, or would the red banner of a communist Labour Party fly high in the halls of Parliament? Neither happened. Instead, the centre-right coalition of a National Democratic League won the hearts of the voter. Headed up by George Jericho, a former commando diplomat and son of the old hero of Jutland, I don't know. The party promised a return to the England of old, one of free markets and strong economy ruled by the daughter of King George VI, but also an England that would make the necessary social changes and economic reforms to keep up with the modern era. And with the glowing endorsement of Claude Auchinleck was enough to seal the deal in many districts. Many are concerned that this coalition may not last. It is made up of many parties with different goals and volatile personalities, but the NDL will press on. It will fulfill its mandate and give the voters what they ask for, an England ruled by sensibility and compromise, as well as a constitutional monarch. Perhaps one day a Britain that is respected by the nations of the world. Let us go forward together. Okay. Some stuff is happening. Some big stuff. Okay, let's go ahead and look. There we go. George Jericho. George Jericho might have a military background, but the once daring commando who terrorized the Italian forces in the Mediterranean looks quite different nowadays. Forced to capitulate following his capture in the earliest days of Operation Sea Lion, Jellicoe pretended to be willing to let go of his loyalty to King George and was released into a well-respected civil service position at the Foreign Office. In secret hour, the son of the admiral in command at Jutland never fully surrendered. In his position at the Foreign Office, Jellicoe was approached by the agents of Claude Auchinleck and quickly rose to become one of the main contacts between the OFN and Her Majesty's Most Loyal Resistance. Following the victory of the resistance forces in the English Civil War, Auchinleck was faced with the problem of his own advanced age and not wanting to set a military precedent for leadership in the new civilian government. As a result, he nominated someone he could trust to head the NDL as the first democratic election in 20 years, a man dedicated to his queen, his country, and his party. Jellicoe plans to turn England into something resembling its former glory. But whether he can do this while keeping his American friends happy remains to be seen. From the end, despite their different origins, Jellicoe is respected by Enoch Powell and Norman St. John Stavas, enough to maintain his position as Prime Minister, but whether he turns the NDL into a party in his own right and earns the trust of Auchinleck placed in him, that Aachen like placing him. There we go. Remains to be seen. So I'll take a look at this focus tree real quick. Interesting. Interesting. Let's have the SIS. Dealing with Philby. Well, I'll look at all this another time. I'm getting fucking tired. People are getting tired too because there aren't too many people left in the stream. And I think it's time to cut it here. So, as always, for YouTube people, thank you for watching. If you like this video, leave a like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you want to see more of his content, actually, I can check this out real quick. Okay, yeah. If you like this video, leave a like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you want to see more of his content in the future, go ahead and hit the subscribe button for more uploads every weekday, as well as every Saturday. If you have any comments, feedback, concern, leave it in the comment section below. I read all the comments I get and I appreciate any all feedback you kind folks might have for me. If you want to send a few bucks my way, I have a Patreon. I have a Discord down link below as well if you want to chat and play games. And if you just want to go ahead and watch this stuff live, I have a Twitch, so you can check that out down link below. Thanks as always for watching, folks. My name has been DB333, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.